We thought it would be a nice break from the kind of discussion we are having to listen to Jack Hidary, who is a well-known entrepreneur, and I would actually leave it to him to tell. He's a very close friend of mine, so he would be embarrassed if I talk too much. But I would like him to tell more about what interesting thing he has been doing, and he will also reflect a bit on where the fund industry or where the opportunities are and what possibly you can look at, how the future is going to be. So, Jack, the best introduction I'll give in a moment is you're my best friend, and sit down for a while to listen to you. Thank you so much. So, Jack, over to you.
Nishit, thank you.
Yeah.
Is this on? Good? Thanks. Nishit, thanks for having me. I'm actually going to pop down here, be with everybody. My name's Jack Hidary, and I'm an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur and investor in technology. And Nishit asked me to come by today to share a few thoughts on investing in India, and particularly where India is going. And so I'm going to do that today. First, I guess some background on myself. I'm from New York, grew up here. My dad is actually here with us today. Hello, Dad. I grew up with the belief that I was going to become an entrepreneur. My father, my grandfather, everyone around me, like many Indian families, are all entrepreneurs. And so I decided I was going to become an entrepreneur. And I built several technology companies. The first company I built is called dice.com. And today it's a publicly listed company on the New York Stock Exchange. And it's the largest marketplace for technology jobs. So in India, in the US, in many other countries, it's used as a place to find technology jobs. We have Matthew here from General Atlantic, which actually also invested in that company, in addition to Warburg Pincus and many others before that. And I had the vision in building this company and starting this company that IT professionals, be it in India, be it in America, had core needs, and nobody was really focusing on their needs. And so I decided to really build a company that was focused on the needs of the IT professional, and that ended up becoming dice.com, which continues on very strongly today. After that, I built more technology companies, and today I also spend a lot of my time looking at very early stage companies in technology in India, in Israel, in America, in the UK. I just landed from London last night, and before that I spent 2.5 weeks in India looking at early stage technology companies. So really trying to get a glimpse of not just what's happening in Silicon Valley, where I also spend a lot of time. I serve now on the board of Google X Labs. Has anyone here heard of Google X Labs? Anyone know what Google X Labs is? Anyone know what Google X Labs does? Any projects? So there's space involved, yep.
The contact lenses.
Contact lens called Iris, which can detect your glucose levels on a continuous basis. How about something related to a car?
Self-driven car.
Right, so self-driving car. If people have seen the show Silicon Valley, it's a funny show on TV. There's a funny episode with a self-driving car where somebody gets picked up in a self-driving car and due to a certain error ends up in an island in the middle of the Pacific. So I commend you that show. But the self-driving car is doing very, very well. And I've been driven in the self-driving car, by the self-driving car many times now in Mountain View. I can tell you it's working really well in the US. I have told the Google X team that based on my experiences in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, and many other places, we are not ready for India. As anyone, I'm sure many of you here have experienced the driving situation in India, but it's one that I think Google X is a great, the self-driving car is a great platform right now, but not yet ready for Mumbai. So we're still working on that. But it's been very exciting to be involved both in investing in tech companies, and I spent about a quarter of my time on moonshots, on Google X, on XPRIZE. People may have seen xprize.org, which is another moonshot platform, and we can talk about that later. What we really want to focus on today, given this conference here, people focus on fund management and investing in India, are 2 or 3 key trends of what's happening right now in India on the ground that will change not just the digital sector, not just in terms of looking at technology companies, but how technology companies and the digital trends are changing many, many sectors. And in this time frame, we don't have time to go into 15, 20 different sectors, but I'm just going to highlight a few different sectors of how technology is revolutionizing these sectors, and they will never be the same. I can also tell you, having been on the ground quite a bit and also speaking to a lot of experts and pundits and analysts at banks and other places, most analysts out there are underestimating the impact that technology is going to have in the Indian context. Most analysts are saying that it's going to take 5, 10, 15 years for some of the trends I'll be talking about. I have to disagree with those estimates. Based on what I see on the ground and based on the network effect. So people, I'm sure here, know the network effect, right? It happened with fax machines when 30% of the population got fax machines, and that took a while. Suddenly, the 100% happened within 2 years because you had to have a fax machine to talk to the people with other fax machines. Same thing with mobile phones, same thing with these other kinds of technologies. So the network effects kick in, and that kicks in nonlinear trends. Not linear, but nonlinear trends. Many times in the investment context, we're used to linear analysis. We're used to 5 or 10% growth in earnings per year, or that kind of context. I've run a publicly listed company, but in this context, in the concept of technology affecting India and the various Indian sectors we'll talk about, I believe that many of these will be in a non-linear mode, not in a linear context. So let's begin. Let's start talking about some of these areas. So I think we all know that mobile is obviously taking over the world, more than 5-6 billion mobile phones today. I was actually in many contexts and many audiences within India. And within India, it's not actually widely known that there's now about 300 million smartphones right now subscribed to and activated in India. And so the number of smartphones has just risen dramatically, rising to 700 million smartphones. Most analysts will not tell you that it's going to happen within 24 months. Their prediction is more like 4 to 5 years to reach that number. I disagree with that. Based on what I've seen in my conversations with the companies like Xiaomi, Micromax, and many others, on the ground, knowing what they are building right now, I believe that 700 million will be achieved within 24 months. That is like adding 1.5 new United States to India in terms of the mobile market. That is dramatic. We're going to talk now about some of the consequences of that. India is second only to Nigeria in terms of the percentage of access to the internet via mobile. And this will figure key in some of the areas. Now we're seeing SMS. So you think, well, mobile operators, they must be loving this, right? There's 4 or 5 major mobile operators in India today. They must be loving all the revenue coming in. But in point of fact, they're actually getting disrupted as well. So SMS only a year and a half ago was 9 SMS messages per day in India. Now it's been destroyed down to 2. What has destroyed that? WhatsApp. Thank you. Okay, this is great. WhatsApp and a handful of others have destroyed that. WhatsApp has 200 million plus users in India right now. So of the billion users they have worldwide, 200 million of those are in India. Now again, many of the folks in India who are getting mobile phones, this is the first experience they've had. They've never used previous versions of these kinds of apps. So they're getting it and they're hearing from the network effect and from their friends and family, hey, let's get on WhatsApp. And so they pop on and SMS is being absolutely decimated. So now that means that mobile operators have to now step up their game. Reliance just made a big announcement 3 weeks ago. Anyone know what that announcement was? Well, they're also launching their own version of WhatsApp, and how about in terms of the speeds of mobile phones? 4G, exactly right. So right now, if you go to India, and when you're in India, your phone says 3G, but actually the speeds are not truly 3G. They're about 2.5G is what I would call it. So when you're with, that's just the reality. When you're with a lot of the e-commerce players, I spent a lot of time with these guys, and their frustration is that when they want to have users experience the beautiful photos and the videos and the ways to upsell and cross-sell all the different types of products they have on their site, they're frustrated because you're on the Flipkart app, you're on the Snapdeal app, and you can't be downloading very quickly. Well, 4G is going to be a big step up. And Mukesh Ambani has just announced a few weeks ago the pricing for 4G. About 500 rupees per month. And 500 rupees per month is a fantastic price for 4G. He's rolling it out in all Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 cities within the next 18 months. This is going to be as dramatic as the stat I just shared with you before of moving from 300 million to 700 million smartphones. So now you have a perfect storm. You have the confluence of the increase in the number of smartphones together with the rise from 2.5G to 4G. And that combined opens up new platforms, new doors. If you look at the history of technology, it's what I would call an Oreo history or sandwich history. You have one layer, which is a platform. For example, when the United States went from dial-up bandwidth to always-on bandwidth, you then had features and new companies building on that platform, such as YouTube. YouTube was not possible before we went to always-on broadband. But once you had always-on broadband, you had many companies emerge. And so the same thing will happen here. We have 2 new platforms, the mobile platform plus 4G, now emerging over the next 18, 24 months. Expect to see a huge amount of increase, not just in the number of products being sold in the current companies, but also whole new entrants, whole new fields being launched in India because of this new platform play. So let's move on now to Xiaomi. Xiaomi is a company based, everyone knows, in what city? Where's Xiaomi based? Shenzhen, right? And they made a major play in India, and they initially came in to disrupt Samsung, LG, Nokia, and Apple. And they said, oh, those are great phones, but we're going to come in here and undercut them by 50%. Well, guess what? That's great. A lot of Xiaomi phones being sold. Micromax is another player that came in, a native player of India, came in and disrupting the LGs and the Samsungs of the world. But now they're being disrupted in turn by Intex, Zolo, and 4 other competitors. Intex's phones are now 50% below where Xiaomi and Micromax are selling. So again, when people say, and I just have one phone here, I just bought in India myself, this is not just a single SIM phone, this is a dual SIM phone. And India will be the first country to have widespread use of 3 and 4 SIM card phones. Because India is one of those countries where there's a lot of roaming fees, and I happen to have my Indian SIM card in here and my UK SIM card in here, because I go to those countries a lot, and then separately I have my US cell as well. If I can have all those SIM cards in one phone, that'd be even better. And so that's a huge cost savings for me, for the consumer, to have 2, 3, 4 SIM cards in one phone. By the way, I cannot get this in the United States. So this is something I picked up in the Palladium Mall in Mumbai. If you're interested, I have it right there. You can get it right there. But in other words, this is now changing. So Intex, Zolo, and others are now coming in 50% below where Xiaomi and Micromax are. And that's why, again, I believe, having talked to these companies, having met with these companies, that the 700 million number is the more accurate number. That may end up being a low number also, but let's assume right now 700 million. So one of the consequences of this is in terms of e-commerce. India is #1 right now in the world in terms of its percentage of e-commerce sales coming from mobile. So we all know about Flipkart. Flipkart will exceed $4 billion this year in terms of GMV, gross merchandise value. So it's not the fees they collect, but it's the total notional value of all the stuff that's going over their marketplace. And Flipkart, again, has 2 models. They do buy inventory themselves, and they also have an open marketplace that you, the merchant, can go online and start selling. India, we know, is a nation of merchants. There are millions and millions and millions of small and medium-sized businesses. They're just beginning to go online. In fact, our stats and our research in India indicates that although there are 250, 300 million smartphone users and a few other internet users as well in terms of other modalities, in fact, only about 40 million people in India have ever transacted online, have ever hit buy in terms of Flipkart, Snapdeal, and others. So we're really just at the beginning. We're just at the beginning phase in terms of where this is going. Only 40 million people are responsible for all the sales of Flipkart and all the other e-commerce sites I'm about to talk about. Snapdeal, marketplace model, was really a distant second about 2 years ago, has really caught up dramatically in the last 2 years. They've taken a number of moves I'm happy to go into in the Q&A session in terms of how they did it, but they also stole 4 key people from Flipkart, by the way, in the last 6 months, including the new CEO of Snapdeal, not the chief executive officer, but the customer experience officer. They just took from Flipkart. Flipkart was known for really good customer service. Snapdeal was not really known for that. So they stole the guy from Flipkart, and now he's working at Snapdeal. And I met with him, among others, at Snapdeal, and I think that they're really on target to really rival Flipkart. We really shouldn't count them out in terms of an equal opportunity to Flipkart. Amazon India is a 3rd place right now. They're spending a huge amount of money on marketing. Everywhere you turn to now, there's a lot of loss leader marketing, a lot of marketing on the part of Amazon India, but they're still a distant 3rd right now. And let's see, where we are. Okay, so Myntra. Anyone know what announcement Myntra made about 2 months ago? Myntra made an announcement, please. Right, exactly. So Myntra made an announcement. Myntra is owned by Flipkart and made an announcement out of the blue saying, we're going to shut down our e-commerce website. Mobile e-commerce website, desktop e-commerce website, shut it down. If you want to buy from us, you've got to have the app. Now, it seems like a little strange, right? As a capitalist, you want to say, well, I think that we should have everyone trying to buy as many ways as possible from us. But they said, no, 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 no. The better strategy for us at Myntra is to go with mobile only. One, because we want to focus ourselves on the majority of where customers are coming from. And I showed you the stats about how India is leading in terms of how people buy is via mobile. By the way, the US doesn't even touch India in terms of the percentages of people buying online. US is moving upwards, but doesn't even touch, doesn't even come to the level that India's at in terms of as a percentage and per capita. And Myntra also is realizing something else. What percentage in India of all Flipkart, Snapdeal, Myntra, other e-commerce site transactions are cash on delivery? Any guesses? Cash on delivery. You buy it online, you hit buy, but you do not provide payment. You wait for them to come to you, and you provide cash on the barrel. 70%. 70%? Right. So India is an 85%, 90% cash economy. It turns out that because the early adopters are the one using e-commerce, we're only at about 55, 60% of the transactions being cash. But that's still a huge percentage, right? So it's a very difficult thing for US e-commerce players to even understand that the majority of your transactions are cash on delivery. This provides logistical nightmares, major ones. But what's happening now in India, that we'll talk about in a second, are payment solutions. As more and more payment solutions come, the majority of them have to be mobile enabled. The wallets, the digital wallets that I'll be talking about in a second, are all mobile enabled. So one of their other thinkings behind Myntra, behind going mobile only, is that they can move their e-commerce customers more towards non-cash payments. In the desktop world, that is very difficult. It's hard to have your fingerprint in the desktop world, hard to have these other wallets in the desktop world. They're not made for the desktop world. So part of the motivation here on the part of Myntra is to go this way. Now, what announcement have we heard about today from Myntra's parent, Flipkart? Not an official announcement from Flipkart, but not denied by them either. Anyone want to guess? So Myntra's parent, Flipkart. Same thing. Going app only. So just today, Flipkart, a number of sources now, and Flipkart has basically verified this and accepted this, that it's true, that Flipkart itself, $4 billion of e-commerce flowing through its veins, is going app only. You do not see this in the US. You do not see this in the UK. You do not see this in China. This is a phenomenon that we have not seen anywhere in the e-commerce world. So something special is happening in India right now. The adoption rate is faster in terms of mobile phones, faster in terms of e-commerce than we've seen in China, than we've seen in other fast-growing countries. This is something quite different. And Flipkart's movement is one such example. Okay, Jugnu Fatafat. Fatafat's my new favorite Hindi word. Fatafat means quick. Jugnu is a firefly. So if you want something, a firefly to bring you something quickly, you call Jugnu Fatafat. Does anyone know what Jugnu Fatafat even does? Anyone here? Has anyone heard? Has anyone tried Jugnu? Okay, please. Yes. Yes, so essentially like a Postmates. Anyone here ever use Postmates? Okay, use Postmates. What have you gotten on Postmates? Food? Okay, good. Anyone here use Postmates? Instacart? Any competitor to Postmates, Instacart, right? So Postmates just got $80 million in funding 2 weeks ago. Instacart got $250 million in funding a few months ago, valued at $2 billion. These are real businesses. This is now moving from the Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal world now into, because it's kind of 2-day, 3-day turnaround, 1-week turnaround, depending where you are, into the on-demand, 1-hour, 2-hour mobile on-demand space. So this is very different. Now, in the US, you look at Amazon, look at all the e-commerce put together. All e-commerce in the United States as a percentage of all retail is what percent? Any guesses? 10%. That's right. So just below 10%, about 9% right now. With all the success of Amazon, 20 years, all the adoption, everyone here knows Amazon. There's no brand issue. And yet it's only 9, 10%. All told, I'm including Walmart.com, I'm including Target.com, I'm including every website out there. And one of the contentions I will share with you today is that what we've been waiting for is on-demand mobile commerce. Because when you think about retail, one of the attractions of retail is the immediate satisfaction of getting it right now. You may need it right now for your business. You may need it right now because you need retail therapy because you're depressed. You need to buy something right now. And so you buy it right now, you get it right now. And so the fact that the store is there, you go and get it. And so retail still had that over even Prime Amazon. Prime Amazon is fantastic. Prime Day is coming up July 15th next week. Anyone here is Prime, make sure to get in on Prime Day. It's going to be bigger than anything out there. But Prime is still 1, 2, 3 days away. It's not immediate. But Postmates and Instacart and all these guys in the on-demand space are now changing that. They're taking that one big reason that retail still had to exist away. And initially, that has affected Staples and Office Depot and people who had no value in terms of the customer experience in the store. There's no value in buying a ream of paper in the Staples store. They don't add value like, hey, check out this ream of paper. There's no value add. And so that's why you see the mergers happen and the consolidation happen in the office supply space. And we're going to see the same thing. There will still be some experiential retail left. You go to a Prada store, you go to an Hermes store, they give you a champagne glass, you sit down, you feel great. That's experiential. That's not actually buying anything. It's experiential. You're buying an experience. But in terms of commoditized retail, we really had to wait till Postmates, Instacart, and other such services to now knock it out so that we can go from 10% to 20 to 30%. And that's now happening at a faster pace within India. So Jujnu Fatafat is just the beginning of this. We also have Local Banya. Local Banya is another site that, again, is allowing you to get things within an hour or two. And Big Basket spans both. Big Basket both has 2-3 day action and also now increasingly has immediate action as well. So in India, we're seeing the rise. They're looking at the US models. They're looking at some UK models. They're adapting it quickly to their culture, to the culture inside India, and to the fact that, again, it's a cash economy. They understand that. And so we're seeing a lot of activity. Now we come to the payments. So we've already discussed how India's 85-90% cash economy, 6-7% debit card, 1% credit card. 1%, only 1% of the transactions in India are by credit card. Now, a greater percentage of the transactions on Flipkart and Snapdeal are on credit card because, again, that's a different demographic, right? You're getting a smaller slice of demographic of India. So you're getting a little skewed there. But looking overall, now I met with the RBI just now in my last trip there just 2 weeks ago, and RBI is absolutely intent on moving that number of cash transactions in the economy down. They literally spoke wistfully in the conversation I had with them about Denmark. Denmark just announced moving to a cashless society. In Denmark, starting in a few weeks, no merchant will be required to accept cash anymore. So they were the first country to truly start moving beyond cash. And so India, the RBI specifically, has now put in a number of different technologies inside the mobile phone. They know the mobile phone is going to be the solution to getting away from cash, and they know that they need to drive it that way. And so there's a lot of thinking happening on the part of RBI now how to do that. They're enabling, they're giving licenses to more and more companies out there. This is a big opportunity, and Jack Ma obviously also knows that. Jack Ma just invested $575 million in Paytm. Paytm is a digital wallet allowing you to pay in a variety of different ways. And Jack Ma, from his experience with Alipay, which is like a PayPal of China, knows how big an opportunity this is. They've now cross-fertilized those two sites. So now consumers using Alipay can now buy stuff on the Paytm e-commerce sites. Paytm, of course, being India, it's not just a pure way to buy stuff, but also they also offer stuff for sale as well. There's 10 million items available for sale on Paytm. And so now there's a cross-connection between Paytm and Alipay and Alibaba as well. So that's going to drive Paytm forward. You also have the blockchain and Bitcoin. Blockchain and Bitcoin are very, very nascent stages right now in India. Really no big traction right now. I just put it here to kind of seed the idea with you, with this audience, that blockchain and Bitcoin are something to watch very, very carefully. There's even talk right now in Greece that people seeing obviously the crisis in Greece right now, people are taking their whatever euros they can suck out of the bank. Some of them are sticking to Bitcoin. Here in the United States, the first Bitcoin ATM machines have now just rolled out. There are 100 Bitcoin ATM machines in the United States. So this is going to accelerate very quickly. Whether or not Bitcoin succeeds is not the issue. The blockchain is very, very powerful. The blockchain has another powerful use in India. There's a large issue in India, many Indian companies, as to exactly what the revenues are, this, that, so on and so forth. If you're an investor, if you want to have double ledger transparency, if you want to have open and transparency in terms of all the financials, things like that, we're going to see more and more blockchain used as a way to verify that. So all these private companies that are not publicly listed, you may not know exactly what's going on, we're going to see blockchain. So this is another usage of blockchain, not as currency, but as information management with transparency and trust. So look for that as a big opportunity in many countries, not just India, but India as well. Now, peer-to-peer lending. I met with a lot of the banks across India, large ones and small ones. There's also the non-financial bank corps in India. So you have traditional banks lending, you have non-financial bank corps like Tata Capital and others lending out there. And I believe both of those have to look at what's happening in peer-to-peer lending. Outside of Kiva and the microfinance space in India right now, there are no pure peer-to-peer lending players in India today. I met with RBI about this. They're open to it. They want to give the first license to a peer-to-peer lender. They have not yet given and actually not yet received the application for a credible peer-to-peer lender today. But you look at Lending Club and On Deck Capital. Anyone know the market cap of Lending Club right now, listed on the stock exchange?
12 billion.
12 billion? Well, not quite yet 12 billion, but 12 billion is the number of loans going through their system. So they have billions and billions of loans going through the system. The market cap is in the $3 to $4 billion range. But yes, putting out $1 billion a month in terms of loans. This is big money. On Deck Capital, $2 to $3 billion of market cap right now. Business-to-business loans. So Lending Club, personal loans. On Deck Capital, B2B loans. I believe this is going to be absolutely huge in India. Because when you think about it, not only will Indian peers go to Indian peers, but there's already been a context and a precedent for people outside of India giving loans into India via Kiva. I think that's now going to extend itself with new transparency and feedback sets that the internet allows us to do and mobile allows us to do in terms of people all around the world going in and lending money to these companies. Now, what you find that happens in Lending Club and On Deck, particularly Lending Club and other marketplace models, is that it's not really truly just peer-to-peer. It's not just an individual person saying, I have $1,000, I'd like to lend that out right now. Hedge funds have gotten on the game. The majority of funds available in peer-to-peer lending platforms are from hedge funds. These are hedge funds that said, you know what is the interest rate on these peer-to-peer loans? Oh, 18%, 24%, 34%, 40%. I'd like those returns. I can minimize and mitigate my risk. I can manage my risk using new tool sets, not just the old traditional Fair Isaac score and the credit scoring, but a wider range of big data, crunching the big data, mining that data to actually bring down my risk, manage my risk, and understand what default rate I should project out. You can now set a dial and say, I'm willing to accept a 2% default rate. I'll build that into my model, and I will now have an 18% return, net of default, on my money. So again, this has already happened. This is not in the future. This is now. And this is going to happen now in India. Not day one has even started in India in this particular sector. Let's now talk about the transportation sector. So we all know that Uber is out there. I've taken Uber in Mumbai, lots of other Indian cities as well. But in fact, there's a fast follower coming in, which is Ola Cabs. Ola Cabs today is at 250,000 rides per day in India. The projections we have, based on data that we just compiled 2 weeks ago, is that Ola Cabs will not only exceed the number of rides in Uber, which it now probably does already in India, it may rival Uber in terms of the number of rides Uber does in the world. Now, the dollar amounts will be smaller because the per ride transaction fee is smaller. But Ola is not a company well known in the Western context, but it is a company that is succeeding in a huge way. So look to these kinds of models to actually start to, again, change the market very quickly. Now, let me talk about two models that are not yet in India, Daimler and BMW. So Daimler and BMW have models. One's called Car2Go. One is called BMW Drive Now. Okay, these are two companies that are supposed to be in the business of manufacturing a car and selling it to you to drive. What are Car2Go and Drive Now? Any ideas what business models these are? So it's kind of like a rental. It's an on-demand, mobile-enabled rental. So basically what happens is if you're in one of the 25 cities that Car2Go has, if you're in one of the 15, 20 cities that Drive Now has, you reserve a car on a mobile phone. You find out the car is 2 blocks away, 1 block away. They are parked all over the place, in parking lots, on the street, all over the place. and you walk up to the car opens, keys already inside, and you drive off, use it for 3 hours, drop it off wherever you want to, leave it there, then you come along, you find it in that new place. So it's like a Zipcar-ish model, but it has actually a lot more flexibility because you don't have to bring it back to a Zipcar location. You just leave wherever you want to, just leave it. Now Drive now has the additional approach of using mainly electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles from BMW as opposed to Car2Go. But the point is that both of them are being quite successful. And so Daimler has now said publicly that in 10, 20 years, it's not sure whether revenues from mobility on demand will be greater for it or selling cars will be greater. Bill Ford, the chairman of Ford Motor Company, has said the same thing. Now, they have not experimented as deeply as Daimler and as BMW has, but it is on their radar. Ford is clearly moving towards that direction as well. Every major car company right now in the US and in Europe, most of them have these experiments going on. But you don't yet see this right now from Tata and Mahindra. You don't yet see it right now from the car companies in India. So I think we're going to start to look for what might happen in this mobility space. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see. I think in the next 18, 24 months, we're going to see some changes happen. I'll just put it this way. More cars on the road to Mumbai may be possible. I'm not sure where. But not that I saw. Between 6 scooters, 17 people walking, 3 cars in the same place, in a small, narrow street, I'm not sure you put another car. So I think these kinds of models are actually going to take hold in India in a big way. But of course, Ola and Uber may actually be then superseding these models. Because if you can get someone who's already driving you, why would you want to drive yourself? So I think we actually may find out a bifurcation of this market. If you need to drive from, say, Chennai to Bangalore, and you want to take that drive, and you don't want to rent a whole car maybe for 10 weeks or things like that, maybe you just want to do it quickly, on the spot, maybe you'll do a drive now type model. But if you just want to go within the city, you might do an Ola or Uber. So we may see a differentiation in terms of that. But I do think we're going to have a lot of transport thing. Now let's talk about Tanishq. Anyone here bought anything from Tanishq? Tanishq? No? Okay. Good. So Tanishq is a company, I'll just use this, Julie, as an example here. I have a beautiful necklace here, beautiful stone. Appears to be a normal piece of jewelry. In fact, this is tethered to my phone. It's a wearable device. And so a woman wearing this can set it via the app that comes with this particular piece of jewelry to say, if my husband calls, buzz in a certain way. If my son calls, buzz in a different way. If my mother-in-law calls, don't buzz. You can do that if you want to. And this is actually made by a UK company called Covert, K-O-V-E-R-T, Covert Designs. And I was in conversations now with Tanishq, with Titan. I'm wearing a Titan watch right here. I want to thank Tata for this beautiful Titan watch. I was giving a speech with Tata, and they were kind enough to give me this Titan watch. But Titan and Tanishq and others are now looking at this wearable space. Because the future of wearables is not about geeky watches. It's not about wearing a big fat watch with a big screen. That's a minority of the population. Those are geeks like myself. But for the majority of folks, they want to wear a beautiful looking watch, nice piece of jewelry, and they want it to have the functionality that you'd have in the geeky stuff. So you think about India, in the Indian context in terms of wearables, it's not going to be driven primarily by health and fitness, the way it is, say, here in the US. One of the key concerns right now in India, for example, is women's safety, is tracking your children, is tracking the elderly who might have Alzheimer's or other kinds of diseases that allow them to wander off. And so if a woman can have an SOS device on her person so that if she's being attacked, she can quickly hit a button, SOS, and suddenly within a matter of seconds, everyone and the police and others know that she's under attack, she needs help, that's a solution to a key problem. And so women's safety, these other kinds of applications will be drivers of these new kinds of wearables in India. And look to Tanishq and others to start to come out with these kinds of products. So when you think about wearables, don't just look to the Apples of the world, Intels of the world, the tech companies. It's primarily going to be the non-tech companies who make wearables successful in the Indian context. They might be driven by technology that comes from a tech company. But a lot of that technology is actually quite commoditized. It's really going to be the context in which you use this jewelry And you might even have multiple wearables on the same person. So in the case of the child, if you're concerned, if you're in an area where your child might be taken away, kidnapped, then you want to have one in their shoes, one in their backpack, one in their, and even into the clothing itself. So clothing now is being made right now by a number of companies that have the wearables built in to the clothing. So the tracking devices are there, and they're all over the kid, and you have redundancy, so it's very hard to take it out. So this is going to be a big area in India. It's going to be an area that initially will look very different than the US context. It's not going to be just millions of people just wearing Apple Watches all over the place. And one thing that's also going to happen is when it does come to the watch, it's going to come to the watch to the point where the SIM card might be integrated into the watch. Now the Apple Watch, I have one back here as well, cannot exist on its own. It has to be tethered to the phone. But new watches are coming out from Samsung and others that have a SIM card itself. So you don't need the phone at all. And again, I just mentioned women as an example where women are frustrated sometimes because the phone is ringing, but it's not, they don't have a pocket right now. It's in their pocketbook or a purse, and they don't know it's ringing. But if they had a watch phone, and it looked great, but also had a SIM card in it, and they could answer the phone and talk via Bluetooth headset wirelessly with that watch, that's a different context altogether. Right. So I think the wearables context can be quite different in terms of that. And let me just finish with saying this, that we're about to see exponential change in India and around the world. Mobile is driving that. These trends are driving that. There'll be 5-6 billion people on the net within 4 years. Today, there are 3 billion people connected to the internet. It took 40 years to get to this point of 3 billion people. It will only take another 4.5 years to get to 6 billion. This is exponential change. This is something that we as humans are not really attuned to, we're not really trained for. We must now change our mindset. The question I have for you is which companies are best suited, best positioned to serve the next 3 billion? I will tell you and share with you, I'm not sure it's going to be the ones who dominate the first 3 billion. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of opportunity for disruption, a lot of opportunity for new greenfield projects and new companies. And this is going to be a very exciting 4 years to watch. I welcome you to join me in thinking about India, thinking about disruption, and thinking about exponential change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack, for talking about mindset change. I know, Jack was absolutely punctual 1 month ago. He spent 2 weeks with me in India, and he was supposed to speak for 15 minutes. And I think he could absorb you all. I think I saw nobody went to sleep. Nobody, felt bored, at least as I could see. It was wonderful.
Good.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's so helpful to get this perspective because, really speaking, we have been talking about a lot of things, but at the same time, understanding Indian situation at this point in time, I think you are on a real time. So I really thank you so much. It was very good. And a lot of things I learned, and I'm sure a lot of things fund managers did too. So one thing, we are just about only 1 hour behind, right? Not too much. Your cocktail also later on, so you can, drink. Don't drive afterwards.